Welcome to another episode of the Unleashing the Future of Work, a guide podcast. Shout out to the guide community. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy in a post COVID-19 world. I have been reading the news lately, and I'm hearing that a few cities and states are starting to lay low on their ordinances, and things are starting to get back to normal in a few countries and states. So I'm happy to hear that. Please show us some love in the comments and let me know where you're tuning in from so I can shout you out and say hey. More importantly, today I am joined by two amazing rock star women, Sheunopa and Symone, who are the creators of the Highkey Woke podcast, and two fantastic technology leaders who work with Accenture in consulting. And we're going to be discussing tech consulting and entrepreneurship. They have a lovely message and a lovely background they're going to share. And we're going to dive deep on how they started the Highkey Woke podcast, but a little bit about their history with entrepreneurship. More importantly, their love for it and what this time post COVID-19 has kind of taught them. And, I'm excited to bring them on because I've met these two lovely ladies through a friend who I think recommended me to be on their podcast, or they found me somehow. And I just love how authentic and amazing that they are. And more importantly, their hustle. Their hustle really was breathtaking to me. So, guide community, I think you all are going to love this episode. Shout out to Elizabeth, who's tuning in from Houston, Texas, with Click on HR. Shout out to you, Elizabeth. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And without further ado, let me bring on Symone and Sheunopa. Hey, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
Bring
Greetings.
Greetings. How y'all doing?
Trying to make it.
Yeah.
Black and blessed.
True that. So, ladies, I would love for you two to, share a little bit more about how you two met each other and the history and the start of Highkey Woke. And tell us a little bit more about it.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Sheunopa, and Symone is my friend. Like, we friends for real. We're not just podcast hosts. How did we meet? We both started working at the same firm in Chicago a few years ago, and so we just kind of started meeting at networking events. When all the people linked up, we were linking up. My version of the story is that. My version of the story is that Symone was pinging me all the time. Not all the time, but it was more so like she was hitting me up. And I'm like, okay, she's really friendly. She just, hey, how you doing? And stuff like that. And so after a while, I was like, all right, bruh, I'm going to see what you're talking about. Let's be friends. And then we just kind of bonded from then on. I think the work thing brought us together, being Black women in technology, new to the working world. That's kind of brought us together. And then we also bonded over the fact that we both wanted to move to Atlanta. So that was just like, oh, dang, wow, you're me, I'm you. So so then we were able to, move to Atlanta at the same time. And so the friendship just kept on blossoming and, becoming what it is today. And then the podcast came along a year ago, and it was like, we talk a lot of these things that are going on, the politics, corporate America, the culture, we talk about that all together. Why not just go and put it on a platform? So, because we know that other people are having these conversations, we can't be the only one. And so that came to life, Highkey Woke podcast. Short story.
Long story made short.
Symone, is that correct? Does that match up to your recollection of it?
For the most part, I'm not gonna go back and forth on like the nitty gritty details. But it's a high level, 10,000 foot level. That's exactly where that was.
Yeah, I love it. So, for you two, when did you all realize that you all wanted to work in tech?
Oh man, I've known for a long time. Even when I was still in high school, I took a computer programming course in high school. I was blessed enough to have those opportunities in high school, and I took it from then. I was like, oh wow, this is great. And I've always really loved computers, even from our home computer. Till this day, my family does not know that I'm the one who downloaded LimeWire and broke the computer. We're not gonna talk about it. Even with like the home computer, I was always just like playing around, doing this and the next thing. And then I knew that I wanted to get in the technology space, but I knew that I didn't want to be like a back end person. I didn't want to be, the heads down coding kind of person, but I still wanted to be conversational. I still wanted to be able to talk about it. So then I kind of paved my path in college to not be, I'm not a computer science major. I was an informatics major, which is essentially information systems, information technology. So
Yeah.
I can talk the business, and then I can also talk the
technology piece.
There you go. Yeah.
What about you, Symone?
I'd say for me, I am a mechanical engineer. That's what my bachelor's is in. So I always knew that STEM was going to be my area or my lane. When I first started college, actually, I was a pre-med major with hopes of going to med school and creating the cure for AIDS, just simple things like that. I shortly then realized med school was not for me. So I looked onto greener pastures in the world of engineering. So my mom is a nurse. My dad is an engineer. So I always knew it was either going to be medicine or in technology in some way, shape, or form. So that's kind of how I ended up during going down the engineering route. As far as like professionally speaking though, like I knew like a hardcore engineering job was not going to be for me. I quickly learned that through internships. And when I looked around and saw a whole bunch of people that did not look like me or could definitely be my grandfather, I was like, yeah, this isn't it. So that brought me to explore where my opportunities were within the world of technology. So that's actually kind of how I landed where I am currently.
Yeah, and I think it's powerful too because you all kind of gave yourselves room to experiment and make sure that you all felt as if y'all were in roles that were meant for you all, and more importantly, allowed y'all to leverage y'all's best skills and y'all's strengths. Like Sheunopa, I love how you mentioned that for you it was a matter of I know I can speak the business and I also know I can get the technology. And I think early on in our careers, a lot of young professionals, they don't realize that, they have a certain set of skills and strengths that allow them to be really remarkable in a specific role.
100%.
Right. And, I think too, with you all realizing that, okay, I love technology. I might want to do consulting. How did y'all, determine that consulting was the route for you? Monet, I like you to start.
Okay. So I actually came upon consulting on accident. So I was actually taking advantage of like the summers, doing the internships, trying to like figure out where I wanted to land it after I graduated, because I feel like a lot of messaging, like when we grow up, is more along the lines of go to school, get your education, get a decent job, and it's just like, okay, after that, then what? So I actually started to take a little more serious kind of like what my, work life would be when I graduated. I knew I didn't want to like sit at a desk all day. I didn't want to do the same task all day, every day. Like there were just certain things that I knew that I didn't want to do. So I was able to diversify my internship experience outside of just engineering. So I also had like an internship with a really big financial institution. So I got like a taste of economics and finance. And I was just like, I was, feeling at least like the level of knowledge that I was gaining from that experience. But I knew that I was not going to get that same amount of knowledge, like working for like a traditional, like Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin. And I also knew like I wanted to do like project-based work. So and my company now is a really big executive sponsor for NSBE, the National Society of Black Engineers. So I ended up talking to a couple of people, I interviewed through the recruiting process at the conventions, and that's kind of how I landed here. But I knew what type of work that I was looking for. So that's kind of what led me to get into consulting.
Because you were clear on a direction.
Oh yeah.
And it's so important because I feel as if early on in our careers, it's hard to create that kind of clarity, right? Right. Sheunopa, what about you?
I'm not even gonna lie and say I have this, pretty picture of like when I leave, I'm gonna get into consulting. I knew that I was a technology. I was going to get paid, and that's all I cared about. So similar to Symone, I had internships. I had the IT internships, but then I also had a finance internship, and then I also had a research internship. So I dibbled and dabbled, but I thought my traditional role when I was going to leave college was I was going to be in some, project management, project business analyst, when you merge the two together. I didn't think I was going to be consulting. I didn't think I was going to be traveling. So I came about, consulting. It was getting closer to the end of school year. Okay, you need to find a job.
I need a job.
You don't want to go to grad school just yet. You need a job. So, I'm doing the career fairs. I'm interviewing with different firms, and it just so happened that it worked out with where I'm at now. And so it just kind of fell into place. So I would say, when did I know consulting was for me? Once I started in consulting. I didn't know it once. And even to this day, I'm like, this is ghetto, right?
Yeah. The way that it works.
Right. But and some days I'm like, okay, this is a lot. This is too much. Then other days I'm like, I love the spontaneity. I love the difference in projects. I love the this, that, and the next thing. So I didn't know until I got into it, honestly.
I think let me show some love to our amazing viewers. Hello, Vinsa from California, Mrs. Puka. Thank you so much for tuning in. Shout out to Josh, who is loving our conversation so far. He's saying great commentary. Amen. Laugh out loud to everything y'all are saying. Michael Ojo, what's good, Michael? He's saying he's already loving this live episode because you two are amazing. And he's in a traditional engineering role right now. So he can feel the pain of that. Nyla is currently tuning in from Houston. Shout out to Nyla, who is a frequent viewer and is an amazing, talented learning experience designer. She is talking about that she's going to go subscribe to y'all's podcast right now. So shout out to the
fantastic
Highkey Woke duo. Joel is tuning in from Ivory Coast. He's saying this is a really interesting subject for him, and he's really excited to have you all on the show. My boy Hamza is tuning in from Alexandria, Virginia, who is a programmer since 10, not 9, not 9, 10, since 10. With a few ventures, so he's super interested in what you all are talking about. So shout out to Hamza, who is a 7 times software engineer. I love it. So I think what's so powerful with you two is because you all have created this clarity. Y'all have adapted so far in y'all's career, and I think there's a huge hustle that y'all bring to the table in terms of how y'all see y'all's career, right? Even with the Highkey Woke podcast, you all are working with one of the top consulting firms in the world, in Accenture. How do y'all stay motivated? And Sheunopa, one of the things you mentioned is that early on, when you were in spaces where you didn't even feel as if you saw people that looked like you didn't let that deter you and make you feel as if you didn't have a place in tech. So how do y'all stay motivated and overcome those challenges?
Man, I think I would say being very self-aware, because you have things like imposter syndrome that happen, and then things like, the double consciousness and the code switching, all that stuff. I think you have to be very self-aware, because many times we deal with imposter syndrome, but we don't know what it is. We're confused, we're feeling a type of way. But I think once you realize you're conscious about what you are dealing with, you can better deal with it. So I can be in a space where I'm like, I'm feeling a lot of imposter syndrome, but how am I going to deal with this? So me personally, I didn't necessarily become hip to the whole imposter syndrome thing until I started working. But in my classes, I'm in a tech field, which is predominantly a white male field. So I'm sitting in group projects and there's all white males. The only female, I'm the only Black one. I was dealing with a lot of imposter syndrome, but then I didn't know what it was. It just felt like discouragement, like I was not doing the right thing. And so once I become a little bit more self-aware, I know when I'm dealing with imposter syndrome. I know when I'm talking down at myself. I know when I'm doubting myself. I can better deal with it. And I think when you are self-aware, you are able to adapt and deal with situations like, not feeling like you're accepted or you're able or whatever the case may be. So I think you need to get really self-aware, long story short.
Yeah. Symone, what are you thinking about that?
I think this is about to sound very consultant-like, but I think it's important to kind of remember your purpose and objective when you're pursuing things. So I think that when I walk into these spaces and I don't see people that look like me, that gives me more motivation to keep pushing forward, because I know, like, for the younger me, I need somebody like me to look up to understand, like, you know, we do exist in these spaces, and I definitely don't want, like, my environment and the way that it looks like to discourage me from what my overall purpose and objective was for that. So I definitely just use that as use that and use as motivation to keep going, really.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's such an optimistic perspective too, right? Because I think it's so easy in this day and age to read the news and read all of this noise that, oh, we don't, you know, like people of color don't belong in this space, or we don't see ourselves in this space. And I think one of the most magnificent things for me as a leader and, you know, as someone that's in this space is that I see and I meet so many people who are in this space. So I see the representation, and, you know, for me, I always see as if it's my objective to definitely showcase, like, no, there's definitely people of color with diverse and dynamic backgrounds who are killing it in tech, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And I think one of the things I really love about y'all's podcast, right? And I want us to dive deep on this, is that you all interview some of the most dynamic and diverse people. And I want to ask you two, right? Who or what has been one of y'all's favorite episodes thus far?
Man.
Yeah, that's a powerful question, huh?
I feel like we've had so many just like heavy hitter episodes that it's kind of like hard to pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm, you know, I know y'all interviewed one of my homegirls, Precious Price. She's amazing. And I'm sure she talked about branding, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I haven't gotten a chance to listen to y'all's podcast yet, or that specific episode. I think one of the things I love about Precious's work is that she lives branding and she's so passionate about it. And I think one of the things that y'all are doing with y'all's podcast is y'all are branding yourselves, right? Like, y'all are branding a movement. And I want y'all to touch a little bit. And Sheunopa, I would love for you to kind of add to this. You know, why is branding and just creating content so important, you think?
So first and foremost, if you are online, you have a social network account, you have whatever it is, you have a brand, period. Whether you know it or not, you already have a brand. So it's up to you to either build the brand, or, hey, some people destroy the brand, or you just kind of keep it stagnant. So you have a brand, period, whatever it is. So the importance of, I think let me take a step back with the importance of how we're branding Highkey Woke Podcast is because we realize that there's not a lot of people in our space doing what we're doing. There's not a lot of Black people talking about the things that we're talking about. So when we say Highkey Woke, we're not meaning like some hotep-y, tippity tap woke. It's a real, like, you need to get woke on voting. You need to get woke on progression. You need to get woke on what's going on out here in this culture, what they're doing. You need to get woke in all these different areas. So our brand is just about getting people the knowledge that they need, and the knowledge that we think is best for them, because we cannot continue to be a generation that says, well, I didn't go and vote because I didn't know, because that's not going to work. For us to build a better generation for the generations to come, we need to be woke. We need to have knowledge. And so that's kind of what we're doing with our brand. And we're not preaching at nobody. We ourselves are just learning ourselves too, but we're just giving the knowledge that we have, because I think many times with, and I hate to say it, in the community that we're in, people can get very selfish about the information that they have.
Yeah.
And they don't want to provide, or you have to jump hoops to get it, or you have to pay ridiculous amounts of money to get it.
When it's already free.
Right. Everything's for sale.
Right.
Correct. So
everything.
That's not the direction that we're wanting to take. You shouldn't have to pay me to tell you that you need a mentor and a sponsor. Like, you shouldn't have to pay me for that. That's
ridiculous.
So
and that's just like a fact of life, right? Like, we all need people who can guide and mentor us. And, you know, one of the things that really inspires me with the work that we're doing with God is that we see it as an opportunity, not only for people to learn, but when you're learning from people, you're gaining mentorship, you're gaining that direction in a very unique way. Symone, what are your thoughts on this, right? Because, you know, you both started the Highkey Woke podcast, and y'all are killing it. And I feel as if have you always been creating content, and have you always kind of seen the value in personal branding the way y'all do now?
I think that this has definitely been like a learning journey for me. I think circling back to my point from the last question about purpose and objective, I think we know what our purpose is and what the information that the knowledge that we're trying to make sure that our listeners and other people can attain. So I also think from like a branding perspective, like again, still we're students here, and we're we're learning as we go, and I think like we're figuring out like what's working best for us. What do we need to modify or improve, or what do we need to
how can we iterate?
Switch? Right, in an agile fashion. So yeah, but I think one thing, at least for me, I definitely think Sheunopa can also identify with this, is that the learning curve with branding on social media. I feel like it's just like a whole other ball game. Like it's places like Instagram didn't exist 10 years ago. Facebook was just starting out 10 years ago, as well as Twitter. So it's just this ever evolving kind of concept, to learn how to brand yourself in different platforms and things of that nature. But it's been a good journey so far.
I love that, because you always have to be a student of the game.
Always. Always.
You have to. I mean, before y'all started Highkey Woke, did y'all even know how to podcast? Like, I don't think anyone comes out the womb knowing how to podcast.
Nope. No, we just figured everything out via Google and
YouTube,
Right.
Yeah.
So Nala is saying that episode with Precious may have seemed deep, or must have been deep. She hasn't listened to it yet, but she was looking at the Instagram and that one jumped out to her. So shout out to Nala, who's already kind of like looking through y'all's Instagram and trying to be a part of y'all's community.
Okay.
And Nala's also saying she was really feeling, kind of how you were talking, Sheunopa, about how in, Black and brown community, sometimes we try to preserve information and gatekeep it. And she mentioned skin folk ain't always kinfolk. So that's a powerful statement from Nala, who's really tuning in. And Nestor, my boy Nestor from Colombia, who is saying, Colombia, South America, he was like, this is great content, my friend. And he's really feeling this episode with you too. Appreciate you so much, Nestor. Make sure that you share this with your network if you love it so much, Nestor. I'll appreciate it. And if you're tuning in right now, please share this live episode of the Unleashing the Future of Work podcast to your lovely network, because there's definitely somebody in your network that needs this information. So with you two, you all have an amazing presence. I really I love what y'all are building, the movement that y'all have created. And I think, for so many entrepreneurs and leaders right now, some people are working in corporate America. Millions of people have been let go, or they're currently facing a challenge. Okay, how do I pivot? And I feel as if, we're grateful. We all have something that we're working on and we're blessed to be doing. What are y'all's thoughts on how people right now can pivot in their careers, whether it be creating new income streams or putting themselves out there? And Symone, I would love to get your thoughts on this.
Okay. I will definitely say there are hundreds of resources out there to maximize the additional time that you have. And one of them being upskilling in some way, shape, or form. I have like an entire like to-do list now of things that I'd like to learn, like within amount of 3 months, 6 months, whether it's a year, things like that. Because like you have your platforms like Code Academy, or you have Udemy, or things like that. Make a list of something that you've been interested in learning for quite some time, but maybe your job didn't allow for you to take up multiple things at once. That was the time. That and everything right now is, the prices are lower than usual. So I would definitely say purchase as much as you can. In regards to, the areas that you're interested in. Does everything have to be done at the same time? No, it doesn't. But definitely you have like that content right there at your fingertips to start learning.
Yeah, that's powerful. I love it. What are your thoughts on this?
I think, well, first I would say very practical tips that Symone gave. I'm all for the discounted everything. Hello.
We love a discount.
I love a discount. But I think also on like the more human level, I think maybe show yourself
talk to us, human.
Show yourself some grace. There's, and I'm sure it's still going on. There was a meme or something that was going around on Instagram where it said, if you come out of this thing and you haven't learned a new skill, you haven't something, you haven't done this, it's not that you lack time, you lack discipline. And I think that is a very dangerous rhetoric, because we're telling people that you weren't grinding, so you just not. And I think we have to realize that people are dealing with this this is something new for a lot of us. So people are dealing with it in a very different way. So I think, one, just give yourself some grace. And we also need to just watch the rhetoric that we're using when we're giving advice to people. I would say this is a great time for you to just assess what's going on with your career, assess where you want to be, think about 2 years ago. What were your goals 2 years ago when you said, if I look at myself in 2 years, in a couple of years, I would be doing this. Are you there? Have you passed it? What's next? So this is a really good time to assess. And even if when all this is over, all you did was assess and write down a plan, you did good, because you took the time to reflect. So in addition to the practical tips, take time to reassess your career, reassess where you're coming from, reassess where you want to be, reassess what it's going to take to get to where you need to get to. And just take the time to give yourself grace. It's okay. It's okay.
Y'all are Symone and Sheunopa, y'all are preaching right now, man. I'm feeling this. No, because I think, to your point, Sheunopa, it's dangerous rhetoric to kind of challenge people to feel as if they have to like build a $1 billion business during a pandemic, right? It's really dangerous rhetoric. And I think what's so powerful and so authentic about what y'all are saying is the fact that this is just a time to recalibrate, pivot, but more importantly, assess. Like that's a really powerful perspective, because I think so much of our lives and our careers is often, you're doing things for other people, or you're working a full-time role, that you almost forget to say, what do I want as an individual, as a person?
Yeah. And I think even with now, we're realizing that maybe some of us were just going super hard for jobs, and I'm going to just say it straight out. If you were to die today, that job would replace you tomorrow. So
immediately
we realized that we were just going very hard for jobs that, weren't necessarily giving us back what we needed. So it's just a time to just slow down. I think also with that rhetoric around you didn't lack time, would you like discipline? I think we're still thinking about productivity in life before pre-COVID, and what that looks like. We need to be thinking about productivity during COVID and post-COVID. So there has to be a shift in the way that we're defining some of these things.
Powerful. And I think one of the things that, I would love to get y'all's thoughts on this, Symone and Sheunopa, is I often tell people is that now I think we're moving toward the future where people are going to be designing their work around their life versus trying to design your life around your work. Right. So it's like a matter of people are going to prioritize their health, their, wellness, their family. And more importantly, like, am I doing the work that's more fulfilling for me? Because, I talk to a lot of leaders and organizations. And it's like, now that you have a remote workforce, they can easily leave, right? Like there's thousands of remote jobs that are popping up online now. There continues to be a rise in the gig economy. So now more than ever, like there's this opportunity for leaders to create true trust, but more importantly, realize that, it's not a matter of prioritizing work over life. It's now you got to prioritize their life around their work. And that's a different mental model.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are shifting. Things are really shifting. People are beginning to learn what's truly important to them right now. And I think workplaces would be remiss if they didn't, after all this was done, they didn't adjust accordingly as well. Because you can't tell me that I spent how many months working from home, and you can't tell me that I can't go to the take my doctor's appointment and then work from home. So
it's true.
It's not gonna work. Things are changing, and you've got to get on the wave, or you're gonna get left behind.
I love it, Sheunopa. I love it. So shout out to Hamza, who's saying, "Love it. Make the most of the situation you're in." So he's feeling this episode. Dean, shout out to Mr. McClure. He's saying productivity can also be internal development, internal productivity. What are y'all thoughts on that, Symone?
I definitely think that I can at least speak for my perspective, like learning how to meditate, and learning mindfulness and how to practice mindfulness are personally on my to-do list of things that I need to, that I personally need to learn to, just be aware, like work on like from a mental perspective. But I definitely think that means like it's time. There are times where we need to, sit and reflect internally and understand, like, what are things that I personally need to work on. Not necessarily like, oh, I want to like learn Python, but this is more so like, oh, I want to learn how to do yoga because, we're sitting down 20 hours plus a day out of the week. Now my back and my neck hurt. Like I need to figure it out. Those type of things.
I saw my dad. He was like on the computer. He's down. He's probably on the computer downstairs right now working, and he's always hunched back over his computer. I'm like, Dad, you actually need to start standing upright. I know you're working from home now, but you can't get too comfortable. You can't get too comfortable working from home. So I feel you on that, bro.
Yeah. Even right now, like I'm over here kind of like trying to make sure I'm in the camera correctly. Like
it's so true. It's so true. Shout out to Kimberly, who is just tuning in. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for tuning in. We have been talking about all kinds of things. More importantly, this amazing duo's Highkey Woke podcast, why they're creating the movement that they're creating, and also the importance of using this time during COVID-19 to find that internal wellness and really assess the progress that you're making. So shout out to you, Kimberly, for tuning in. And Mrs. Allison, who is studying biochemistry at the University of Uyo, is saying, I wasn't here from the beginning. Is there a possibility to get a recording? Absolutely, Iyo. I will be uploading this to all of my podcast channels, Iyo, and I'll make sure I share it with you. So thank you for mentioning that. So with that said, ladies, I want to ask y'all a few more things, right? Because one of the things that's really amazing about the movement that y'all are creating is the fact that you guys are focused on creating a safe space, right, on the corner of the internet where people can talk and have these very transparent conversations. And, I want to ask you two, how important has community been in helping you all create a successful career and pursuing like just the side gigs and the hobbies and the entrepreneurial things that y'all are doing? Sheunopa, I would love to get your thoughts.
How important has community been? Community, I don't want to make it sound like, cliche. Community is it's very important. You need a group of people who are just there for you to give you the feedback that you need, the constructive feedback you need, to tell you where you're wrong, to tell you where you're right. And so that's the role where community has played for us with the podcast, where I have my people, Symone has her people. You bounce ideas off people. If she knows someone that can do, X, Y, and Z for us, great. Then hello, hook us up. So, so it's just things like that where you have easy access to people and easy access to resources that you otherwise wouldn't have if you did not have the community. And so I think even now more than ever, where we're all indoors and we're all stuck inside, the community helps, and it gives you a lift. It gives you a boost. So when people listen to the podcast, like, I really love that. I really love what you were talking about. I really love what XYZ said. What, the advice that XYZ guest gave really helped me. That to us is one, we're building community with you because we're giving you information that you can benefit from and you can trust us as a reliable source of information. So it's very much different aspects, but it's very important for the podcast aspect. It's been very important.
I love that, Sheunopa. I love that. That's so powerful. Symone?
I definitely mirroring everything Sheunopa just said. Like, community is extremely important, especially like from a support perspective. Just it's been amazing so far, the support that we've gotten from the podcast, like as far as like even feedback, reviews, like all the different ideas. Like I know like some of my friends, like I bounce all those ideas off of them just to kind of like get like what their point of view is and their buy-in, see like, is this really a good idea or am I tripping? It only sounds good in my head, but like, it only sounds good in my head, but like if we actually do this, like it's actually not that good of an idea. So definitely community is very important.
No, that's powerful. And I think, it's the exchange of information too that y'all are mentioning. Y'all are giving people information that can better themselves, that can allow them to better themselves and better their lives and even better their families. and the places that they come from. And I think, oftentimes people discount how something small that you start small can brew into a movement, right? Because I see the Highkey Woke podcast as a movement. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a movement that y'all are creating. It started with a small idea, but y'all are involving people, and it's shaping to be something that, y'all would have never expected it to.
Right.
Exactly.
Because we would be looking crazy if we don't know everything.
Yeah.
So we would be looking crazy if we sat up there talking about what's the topic that we've covered. If we sat up there talking about, well, this is how you navigate performance reviews, and this is navigate performance reviews, but we're on a more extensive level. Or I can't tell you about mental health because I'm not a mental health professional. So we would be looking very crazy if we were trying to give advice on things that we don't have no business talking about. So that's why we bring in people who have the education or who have the experience to give that information, because it's more reliable. Because the two of us just sitting there talking all the time about these things, you look very crazy.
Right. We're just like opinion sharing at that point. Like, we're not even sharing facts.
That's the purpose of community, because the guests add a large part of community to the podcast.
Because they bring their own communities to the
table. Absolutely.
So Kimberly, Mrs. Freeman, shout out to Mrs. Freeman, who is a frequent and active guest, and who is also part of the Break Into Big Tech program and cohort that I do with my great friend, John Marty. She says support systems are vital to our community and growth.
Absolutely.
Y'all feeling that?
Absolutely. Hashtag aligned.
Hashtag aligned. Hashtag objectives. So, I would love for y'all to, talk a little bit about, in the work that you all are doing, whether it be at Accenture or even in just like y'all's personal lives. And by the way, if you're loving this episode, make sure you share to your network on LinkedIn, and please tag me, Sheunopa, and Symone on what you're learning from this episode. Because I know every episode we're teaching y'all something. How are y'all creating safe spaces in y'all's personal lives or even at work? What are some tips, 2 to 3 tips that our viewers and listeners can take away on how to do that?
Man, boundaries. Develop boundaries early.
I was going to establish effective communication methods.
Yeah.
And I think also with wanting a safe space, you also have to be able to create safe spaces for other people. So many times you're like, I want a safe space. But what are you doing to create a safe space for someone else? So it works both ways. But I would say boundaries. For me, it's always been boundaries. Like, this is my bubble. This is my boundary. You don't step anywhere inside of it. We're good.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. Boundaries. So boundaries, effective communication methods, Symone. Dive deep on that. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean is that, like, I feel like we've all heard constantly, like, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. And I know personally for me, that's been one thing that I've been working on, is learning how to effectively communicate. But that's about, learning how to actively listen. It's learning how to paraphrase and, repeat back information for, what you think you understand to, did you understand the actual message that person was trying to convey? And I also think it's about, like, your approach. Like, some people, can't interpret direct communication. Like, they might need a few more words in the mix in order to, properly understand what you're trying to say. So, that's definitely what I've been learning about effective communication. I've also been reading this book called Verbal Judo, which has been very helpful, at least for how I communicate at work to get things done. So it's more or less like a way to communicate to, what is it called? Voluntary compliance. So I need you to do something, but I'm not going to say, hey, do this. I'm going to find a different way to get you to do what I need you to do, but you not feel like you are forced to do it.
That's a powerful book. I'm probably gonna have to check that book out.
Oh yeah.
Like, first of all, I just love the name because I'm really big on Zen leadership. Verbal Judo. That's really unique. I love that. I'll make sure I share this and I add it to the comments for our amazing viewers who are just now tuning in or who are watching the replay later. You know what, ladies, you all have been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the Unleashing the Future of Work podcast. I want to ask you too, what are, a takeaway message that you want to share with our amazing guide community?
Let's see. Takeaway.
I made y'all think, huh?
A lot of things going through the mind. I think in the spirit of staying on brand, I would say stay woke.
Stay woke.
And woke does not mean the play version. Like find ways to continue educating yourself, find ways to continue learning things, find ways to continue pouring into other people. That's be aware of your mental state, your emotional state. That's also a version of being woke too. So
I think for me, I'd say that the main takeaway should be stay open. Stay open and stay positive. And I say stay open because like right now, I feel like we're still like in very uncertain times and we don't know how long this time is going to remain uncertain. And I personally feel like the way we do everything from like work to school to communicating with people to even interactions with people are going to be completely changed like from this point forward. So I definitely say stay open and like don't close your mind off to anything, especially as we're trying to navigate this space.
Yeah, in a post-COVID-19 world. Symone Sheunopa, you two are amazing. I'm really thankful that you all invited me to be a part of y'all's Highkey Woke movement and podcast. It's truly a blessing. And more importantly, I think you all are building something that's going to truly change the world with more time and with more of the community that you all continue to add to it. So, thank you all for being on this episode. I truly appreciate you all.
Yes, thank you.
Kind.
And the last word goes to our amazing community member who's a part of the guide community and who's tuning in right now, Iyo, who is feeling what y'all are saying. And her takeaway for us is to stay woke as well. So she is very #aligned. With that said, if you are interested in being a guest or more importantly, sponsoring future episodes of the Unleashing the Future of Work live podcast, please check out our website, UTFOWLive.com, UTFOW.com. And if you have feedback or any ideas on who I should have on for a future episode or who you want to connect me to have on a future episode, please send me a DM on LinkedIn or send me an email on my website. So check out UTFOW.com if you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor in the future. And with that said, Symone Sheunopa, thank you once again, ladies. I really appreciate y'all. And guide community, thank you so much for tuning in. I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace, love, and be great.
Thank you.